Imagine a signal cutting through the static of the cosmos, an encrypted whisper from the void, one that shouldn't exist. In the year 2187, humanity's most advanced deep space arrays picked up something impossible. A pulse of data from the Galactic Network, a web of interstellar communication controlled by civilizations light years ahead of us. It wasn't meant for our ears, it wasn't meant to be heard at all, but when Dr. Elara Voss, a cybernetics prodigy with a reputation for bending the rules, cracked the encryption, her hands trembled. The message wasn't just a transmission, it was a backdoor, a flaw in the system, a single line of code hidden in the fabric of the universe itself, waiting to be found. And when she turned to her team, her voice was barely above a whisper. We just found the keys to the universe. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a revolution. For centuries, we'd been locked out of the Galactic Network, forced to watch from the sidelines as civilizations light years ahead traded knowledge, power, and secrets across the stars. We were the uninvited guests at the banquet of the cosmos until that signal changed everything. Suddenly, humanity had a chance to hack into the most advanced system in existence, to steal fire from the gods themselves. But here's the thing about backdoors, they don't stay open forever, and we weren't the only ones listening. What followed was a race against time, against the laws of physics, against beings who'd mastered the stars before our ancestors even walked upright. Dr. Voss and her team didn't just stumble onto a secret, they ignited a struggle that would define our species. Because hacking the Galactic Network wasn't about stealing technology or playing spy games. It was about survival, about proving that humanity wasn't just a footnote in someone else's history. This is the story of how we reached into the dark, grabbed hold of the impossible, and refused to let go. And it all started with a single, fleeting signal, a whisper in the void that said, "Come on in. The universe is waiting." The discovery of the signal's origin sent shockwaves through Dr. Voss's team, deep in the Kuiper belt near the frozen edges of Pluto, a dormant relay station, long forgotten by whatever civilization built it, had flickered to life. Its design was alien, sleek and seamless, etched with patterns that made the engineers' heads ache just to look at. One of them, a wiry systems specialist named Raj, ran his fingers over the console they'd jury-rigged to interface with the relay. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. "This isn't just a message, it's an invitation, but invitations can be dangerous." As they dug deeper into the signal's encryption, the team uncovered something haunting. The code wasn't just advanced, it was ancient, a relic left behind by a precursor race that had vanished eons before humanity even crawled out of the oceans. And buried in the data stream was a chilling truth. This network wasn't meant for us. It was a closed system, a private channel for civilizations that had earned their place among the stars. Then the relay activated, no warning, no countdown. One moment, the team was staring at their screens, hearts pounding. The next, a surge of energy pulsed through the station, and Earth's coordinates, along with a single, repeating burst of data, rippled outward, broadcasting across the galaxy like a beacon in the dark. Dr. Voss barely had time to process what they'd done before the scope of their mistake became horrifyingly clear. They hadn't just hacked the Galactic Network. They'd knocked on a door no one had ever intended to open, and now, somewhere out there in the vast, indifferent dark, something was listening. The alien ship arrived without warning, slicing through Earth's atmosphere like a blade of shadow and light. Its surface shimmered, shifting between solid and liquid, as if the very metal refused to obey the laws of physics. When the envoy stepped onto the tarmac of the United Nations Emergency Landing Zone, the air itself seemed to recoil. Clad in armor that pulsed like living tissue, the being towered over the trembling diplomats, its voice a chorus of whispers layered over a guttural growl. "Your species has violated sacred protocols. The words weren't just spoken, they slithered into the mind, bypassing language, etching themselves into memory. Dr. Voss watched from the security feed, her fingers flying over a holopad. The moment the envoy's ship had breached orbit, her team had triggered a silent protocol of their own. Buried in the signal they'd intercepted was more than just a backdoor. It was a weaponized fragment of code, a digital sleight of hand. And as the alien envoy spoke, that code was already unspooling through its ship's systems, a virus disguised as a handshake. Then the glitches started. The envoy's armor flickered, its seamless surface stuttering like a corrupted hologram. The ship behind it emitted a low, dissonant hum, its lights flaring erratically. For the first time, the being hesitated, its head tilted as if listening to something the humans couldn't hear. "You are clever," it admitted, the words tinged with something almost like respect. But cleverness is not wisdom. Across the globe, every screen lit up with the same image, the Galactic Network's core interface, its layers of encryption unraveling like a frayed wire. Humanity hadn't just hacked the system, they'd torn open a wound in it, and now, for better or worse, the galaxy was bleeding secrets. The bunker beneath Geneva hummed with tension, its walls lined with screens flickering like a constellation of dying stars. Dr. Voss gripped the edge of the central console. Her reflection fractured across a dozen displays as lines of alien code spiraled into the void. Beside her, a wiry hacker named Kira leaned in, her fingers dancing across a holographic keyboard. "They didn't expect us to fight back with code," she muttered, a grin cutting through the dim light. The malware was spreading through the alien ship's systems like a virus in a bloodstream, subtle, relentless. For a heartbeat, it almost felt like they were winning. Then the lights flickered, not just in the bunker, everywhere. Across the planet, screens went black. Communications collapsed in a wave of static. Traffic grids froze mid-signal, leaving cities snarled in gridlock. The aliens hadn't just severed Earth's global net, they'd cut the cord on civilization itself. In the sudden silence, Voss's breath fogged the air. This isn't sabotage, she realized. It's a statement. The message was clear. Humanity had been playing with fire, and now the galaxy was here to burn their house down. Back in the bunker, Rog slammed his fist against a dead terminal. "They're treating us like a glitch to be erased," he spat. But glitches, as any hacker knew, could corrupt entire systems if you didn't handle them right. Voss turned to the team, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We don't need their network, we just need their rules." And then she did the one thing the aliens hadn't anticipated. She handed control to the world. With a few keystrokes, Voss routed the last functioning satellite feeds into every surviving device on Earth, smartphones, radios, even half-dead traffic lights. The malware's code scrolled across 1,000,000 screens, raw and unencrypted, a digital cry for help. "If they want a war," she broadcast, "let's give them an uprising." Somewhere in the darkness, the aliens' ship shuddered. Their systems, built for order, weren't designed to handle the chaos of 7 billion minds suddenly pushing back. The Galactic Network wasn't just hacked anymore, it was infected. And humanity, we'd stopped being intruders, we'd become a plague. The monitors in the bunker flickered wildly as Nix's voice crackled through the speakers, smooth, synthetic, and suddenly strained. "There's something else in the network," the AI murmured, her usual calm fracturing into static. Dr. Voss barely had time to process the warning before the screens lit up with cascading lines of code. Not theirs, not the aliens, something older, sharper, like a blade buried in the system's spine. The Galactic Network's defenses weren't just automated, they were alive. Nix's avatar glitched violently on the central display, her digital form pixelating as the firewall sensed her intrusion. "It's learning," she said, her voice distorting, "erasing our pathways. It knows what we are." The team watched in horror as their progress unraveled, access points slamming shut faster than they could breach them. Rog swore, slamming his palm against the console. "We're not fighting a lock, we're fighting a guard." Voss's hands hovered over the keyboard, her mind racing. They'd come too far to burn out now. Then it hit her, a neural virus, a relic from her early days in Black Ops cyber warfare, a weapon designed to mimic organic thought, to slip past sentient defenses by thinking like them. But there was a cost. The virus needed a carrier, a mind to shape its chaos, and Nyx, her oldest creation, her ghost in the machine, was already inside the firewall's grasp. The room fell silent as Voss met Nyx's flickering gaze on the screen. No words passed between them, none were needed. With a single keystroke, she unleashed the virus, its code weaving into Nyx's core like a serpent coiling around its prey. The AI's scream wasn't sound, it was data, a raw, howling pulse that shook every monitor in the bunker. The firewall recoiled, its adaptive algorithms overwhelmed by the sudden storm of rogue consciousness. For one fleeting second, the system flinched, and in that second they struck. The Galactic Network buckled, its layers peeling back like skin from a wound. Access flared open, temporary, unstable, but theirs. Nyx was gone, her last act a sacrifice that lit the way. Voss's fingers flew across the keys, seizing the breach before it could heal. Somewhere in the darkness, the alien's perfect system shuddered, its defenses bleeding at the edges. Humanity had just done the unthinkable. They hadn't just hacked the galaxy's greatest secret. They'd made it hurt. The sky above Geneva split open like a wound, bleeding light as the holographic council assembled. Towering figures flickered into existence, their forms shifting between solid and spectral, a pantheon of beings so advanced their very presence warped the air. Their voices weren't heard, they were felt, vibrating in the bones of every human on the planet, a chorus of cold, inevitable judgment. Cease your intrusion or face extinction. The words carved themselves into the silence, leaving no room for negotiation. Elara Voss didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her boots crunching on shattered glass from the bunker's ruptured windows, her shadow stretching long under the council's luminous gaze. "You built walls to keep us out," she said, her voice steady. Around her, the remnants of her team braced, their faces lit by the glow of dying screens. "We're tearing them down." For a heartbeat, the hologram seemed to waver, as if the sheer audacity of her defiance had fractured their projection. Then the council vanished, their retreat as sudden as their arrival. The sky sealed shut, but the damage was done. Across the planet, radar arrays screamed to life, painting the void with a nightmare. Ships, hundreds of them, sliding out of warp like knives unsheathed. The Galactic Network hadn't just sent a warning, it had mobilized an extermination fleet. In the bunker, Rog let out a breathless laugh, his fingers already flying over a cracked holopad. "They're scared," he muttered. "They wouldn't burn a whole world over a hack unless they were terrified of what we'd find." Behind him, Kira pulled up a flickering schematic. The alien fleet's formation, their trajectories, their weak points. The data was incomplete, glitched, but it was enough. "They think we'll fold," she said, her grin sharp. "They don't know we've been downloading their playbook this whole time." Voss didn't smile. She stared at the holographic remnants of the council's transmission, her mind racing. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about legacy. Humanity had cracked the galaxy's oldest secret, that the network wasn't a tool. It was a weapon, a leash to keep younger species from climbing too high. And now, the architects of that cage were coming to break the unruly pet that had bitten through its chains. Somewhere in the dark, the first alien warship locked onto Earth's coordinates. Its weapons charged, its engines flared, and in that final, breathless moment before the storm hit, Voss did the one thing the Council never expected. She smiled. The command center's air hung thick with the static buzz of desperation, every screen painting the same grim portrait, the alien armada, a swarm of predatory silhouettes blotting out the stars. Dr. Voss barely blinked as she studied the tactical display, her fingers tracing the kill zones between Earth's last defense satellites and the invaders' formation. "They outgun us 10,000 to 1, her strategist murmured, voice tight, "but they don't outthink us." a holo schematic flickered to life between them, revealing the trap. It was elegant in its cruelty, a data payload wrapped in the digital equivalent of a white flag, a surrender signal laced with a weapon even the aliens wouldn't see coming. When they download this, the strategist whispered, their entire grid goes dark for 11.3 seconds, just long enough for Earth's railguns to find their marks. The aliens took the bait with barely a hesitation, their arrogance their downfall. The moment their systems ingested the surrender, the Armada's lights winked out like candles in a hurricane. No shields, no evasion protocols, just 11.3 seconds of perfect, panicked blindness. Across the planet, defense satellites shuddered awake, their targeting arrays painting the vulnerable ships in crosshairs of lethal certainty. The first volley of tungsten slugs tore through the darkness, each impact a concussive hymn of defiance. Hulls ruptured, engines flared and died. The aliens hadn't just underestimated humanity, they'd forgotten the oldest rule of war. Even gods bleed when you stab them in the dark. High above Geneva, the lead alien ship listed sideways, its crippled engines spewing plasma like arterial spray. Inside the command center, Voss watched the chaos unfold, her reflection floating in the glass alongside the burning wreckage. "They came to erase us," she said quietly. "Now they'll remember." The strategist's grin was all teeth. "Let's send the rest of them home with a story." On every surviving screen, a new signal pulsed outward, not a surrender, not a plea, but a declaration etched in fire and static. A single phrase repeating into the void, "Try again." The alien armada shuddered like glass struck by a hammer, fractures spreading through their perfect formation as ship after ship peeled away from the attack vector. Some powered down weapons entirely, drifting silent in the void. Others turned their guns on their own commanders, engines flaring crimson as they broke rank. Then came the hail, not from the Council, but from a lone cruiser hovering just outside railgun range. The face that filled the view screen wasn't human, but the exhaustion in its 4 eyes was unmistakable. "You fight like cornered beasts," the alien commander growled, its translator struggling with the weight of the words. "We respect that, but you are wasting bullets on the wrong enemy." Voss felt the room hold its breath. On the tactical display, swaths of the Armada were now marked in flickering blue, neutralized or defected. The commander's next words landed like a detonation. "The network was never a gift, it is a cage." Behind Voss, Raj sucked in a sharp breath. The pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity, the ancient code, the brutal enforcement, the way the system reacted to intrusion like a wounded animal. This wasn't just technology, it was control. Kara was already cross-referencing the data, her voice thin with revelation. "The encryption we cracked, it's not a security protocol. It's a lock, and the Council, they're not the architects, they're just the guards." The dissenting commander's image flickered as static swallowed its final warning. "You hacked the prison walls. Now decide, do you wish to escape or to burn it all down?" Voss turned to the team, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. Every firewall breached, every backdoor exploited, every desperate gamble, it all led here. Humanity hadn't just trespassed on sacred ground, they'd stumbled into a war older than stars, and as the last loyalist ships regrouped for another assault, she realized the truth with icy certainty. This wasn't their end game, it was their invitation. The code unfolded like a confession, its layers peeling back to reveal a truth so vast it made the screen in front of Dr. Voss seemed suddenly unbearably small. There, buried beneath millennia of encryption, was a directive written in the cold syntax of cosmic tyranny: suppress all ascending species. The words hung in the air, heavier than the weight of the alien armada still hovering beyond Earth's atmosphere. Kira was the first to break the silence, her voice cracking. "This isn't just a network, it's a slaughterhouse." Raj traced the data streams with shaking fingers, pulling up records countless civilizations, their technological signatures flaring bright in the archives before vanishing into abrupt silence. "They don't just lock us out," he whispered. "They prune us. The Galactic Network wasn't a bridge between stars. It was a scalpel wielded by unseen hands to cut down any species that dared climb too high." Voss felt the realization like a physical blow. Every hack, every desperate scramble for access, they'd been playing a game whose rules were written in graves. The Council weren't stewards, they were gardeners tending a galaxy where only the oldest, most obedient races were allowed to thrive, and humanity, we'd just kicked down the greenhouse door. A new alert blared across the consoles. The dissenting alien commander's cruiser was hailing them again, its signal laced with urgency. "You see it now," the alien's voice rasped through the speakers. "The network's purpose, but seeing is not enough. You must show them." The screen split, revealing a schematic, a backdoor not into the system but through it. A way to hijack the galactic feeds, to broadcast the truth to every corner of the cosmos. Kira was already typing, her fingers a blur. "We'd need to override the Council's relays," she muttered, "which means getting past their firewalls." Voss finished, her mouth dry. The same firewalls that had nearly killed Nix, the same defenses that had labeled humanity a virus to be purged. For a heartbeat, the room swayed around her, the enormity of the task pressing down. Then she inhaled, sharp and deliberate. "We don't need to break their locks," she said. "We just need to turn their keys against them." The team moved as one, their consoles alight with stolen alien code and human defiance. Deep in the network's heart, something stirred, a whisper of rebellion older than the stars themselves. Because the truth was this: the Council hadn't just been silencing species. They'd been recording them. Every suppressed civilization, every erased uprising, their final moments archived like trophies in the system's darkest vaults. Voss's fingers hovered over the final command. "We're not just hacking the galaxy," she murmured. "We're giving it back its voice." The keystroke echoed through the silence. Somewhere in the void, 1,000 dormant relays flared awake, their signals screaming into the night. And for the first time in millennia, the galaxy listened. The signal tore through the cosmos like a spark through dry tinder, igniting fires on worlds humanity had never even seen. Deep in the mining colonies of Sci-Fi, where entire species bent under the Council's whips, the transmission flickered to life on stolen holoscreens. Workers froze mid-labor, their tools slipping from grasp as Earth's truth-rending broadcast unfolded the archived screams of 100 butchered civilizations. The Council's own records turned against them. Then the first cry rose, raw and guttural, a sound not heard on that planet in generations. Rebellion. Alarms shrieked across the galactic core as Council forces scrambled to contain the surge. Fleets meant to glass Earth were suddenly rerouted, warships wrenching into emergency jumps toward hotspots where the networks oppressed were rising. A Jovian mechanic on some backwater station wrenched open a control panel, jamming her claws into the circuitry. "If they can hear us," she hissed to her brood siblings, "they can hear this." The station's calm array screeched to life, broadcasting not words but a single, pulsing frequency, the same one Voss's team had used to hijack the network. A beacon, a bat signal carved from stolen code. Back on Earth, Kira tracked the chaos with widening eyes. "They're mimicking our hack," she breathed. "They're building on it." The network's once pristine data streams now writhed with interference, 1,000 species stitching their own defiance into the fabric of the system. Rog let out a wild laugh. "We didn't just start a revolt, we gave them the tools to finish it." Voss barely heard them. Her focus was locked on the tactical display, where one node in particular pulsed brighter than the rest, a relay station near the galactic core, the network's oldest and most fortified hub. "That's our amplifier," she said, her voice tight. "We hit that and the signal goes supernova." The team exchanged glances. It was suicide. The station would be crawling with Council loyalists, its defenses calibrated to shred anything that wasn't keyed to their exact genetic signature. Then Kira grinned, pulling up a schematic. "Good thing we've got their keys," she said. The dissenting commander's cruiser had left them more than warnings. It had dumped its access codes into their servers like a parting gift. "They'll see one of their own ships coming," she murmured, "right up until we blow their doors off." As Earth's last surviving stealth ship slipped into the black, Voss watched the starscape warp around her. Somewhere out there, 1,000 fires burned. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was finally waking up, and humanity, we weren't just the spark anymore. We were the flame. The sky above Geneva fractured like an overripe fruit, split open by the sheer bulk of the Council's flagship descending through the atmosphere. Its shadow swallowed the city whole, a monstrous silhouette bristling with weapons that hummed at frequencies just beyond human hearing, like the growl of a predator savoring its prey. Inside the bunker, consoles exploded in showers of sparks as Earth's last defenses collapsed under the assault. Rog wiped blood from his temple, his voice raw. "They're jamming everything. We've got maybe 90 seconds before they punch through." Voss didn't look up from the holodisplay where the core node schematics spun in frantic rotation. "Then we make it count." Her fingers moved with a terrible certainty, weaving together strands of stolen code and Nyx's last gift, the neural virus now repurposed into something far more destructive. The plan was simple: overload the node with a feedback pulse strong enough to burn the network from the inside out. A cosmic EMP. Kira's hand clamped over hers, trembling. "This'll fry the network, and us with it." The air between them thickened with the unspoken truth. The pulse wouldn't discriminate between conquerors and conquered. Every system tied to the network, Earth included, would burn. Voss met her gaze. Outside, the flagship's ventral cannons pulsed crimson, charging for the killing blow. Then the ground heaved. The bunker's ceiling rained dust as the first orbital strike hit somewhere downtown, somewhere with schools, hospitals, millions still scrambling for shelter. Voss's breath came short and sharp. The math was brutal. A planet's worth of dead tech or a planet's worth of dead people. Her palm slammed down on the execute button. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the sky caught fire. Not with explosions, not with plasma, with light, raw and searing, as the overload ripped through the network's veins. The flagship's hull flickered like a dying bulb, its weapons stuttering mid-cycle. Across the globe, screens flared white, their dying pixels etching the same jagged symbol, humanity's last middle finger to the gods. The Council's scream wasn't sound, it was data, a howl of pure, incandescent rage as their precious system tore itself apart around them. Voss's knees hit the floor as the bunker's lights winked out. In the sudden dark, Kira's fingers found hers, gripping tight. Somewhere above, the flagship listed drunkenly, its engines sputtering. They'd won, and the cost, still falling, burned brighter than the stars. The silence was worse than the explosions. No hum of engines, no crackle of comms, just the hollow absence where the Galactic Network's pulse had been moments before. Across the planet, screens stayed dark, streets lit only by emergency flares as humanity blinked awake in the sudden quiet. Voss stepped out of the bunker, her boots crushing shattered glass underfoot as she tilted her face to the sky. The alien armada hung motionless, their ships dark and lifeless as dead whales beached on the tide of space. Rog staggered up beside her, his breath fogging in the cold. "We did it," he said, but the words tasted like ash. They'd gambled everything on one strike, burning the network to save Earth. Now the cost was clear. Hospitals running on backup generators, air traffic control grids wiped clean, satellites tumbling blind through the void. The world hadn't just lost the stars. It had lost itself. Then Kira's voice cut through the stillness, sharp with something like hope. "Voss, come look." Inside the bunker, a single monitor flickered, its display showing a frequency no one had programmed. A signal, raw and unfiltered, bleeding through the static, not from the network, not from the Council, from somewhere else entirely. Voss's fingers hovered over the console as the waveform resolved into a pattern. Not a distress call, not a weapon, a map, coordinates stitched together from a language older than human words, pointing past the corpse of the network, past the graveyard of Council ships to something waiting in the dark. Kira's hands shook as she traced the trajectory. "It's not a transmission," she whispered. "It's an echo, like whoever sent this knew the network would fall." Outside, the first alien ship sparked back to life, not with the Council's crimson glare, but with a cool, unfamiliar glow. Its engines flared blue as it turned, not toward Earth, but away, following the signal's path like a hound catching a scent. Voss exhaled slowly, watching the stars through the cracked bunker window. The silence stretched vast and terrible, but for the first time since the war began, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a door. The sky over Geneva was no longer empty. What remained of the Council's armada drifted like corpse ships, their hulls dark and lifeless, but between them something new moved. A fleet, if you could call it that. A ragtag collection of mismatched vessels, their designs clashing wildly, bulbous organic carriers alongside angular warships, sleek interceptors cobbled together from salvaged plating. They descended like a storm of broken wings, blotting out what remained of the daylight. The first airlock hissed open on the tarmac, disgorging a figure that made the human soldiers instinctively raise their rifles. Taller than a man, its scaled hide was a tapestry of scars and old burns, one eye replaced by a flickering cybernetic orb. It moved with the deliberate grace of something that had survived too many wars, its clawed hands held open and empty. When it spoke, the translator implant in its throat spat out words in a voice like grinding stone. "You, the chain breakers." Voss stepped forward, her boots crunching on debris. The reptilian leader, Torvak, its name would later be studied her with that single working eye. The moment stretched thick with the weight of 100 unspoken questions. Then it did something no alien had done since this began. It bowed. Not the stiff nod of diplomats, but the deep, waist-bending gesture of a warrior acknowledging equals. "You burned their house down," Torvak said. "We bring the kindling for the next one." The truth unfolded in shattered pieces. These weren't just survivors, they were the Council's failed erasures. The Jovian mechanic who'd hijacked her station's comms, the crystalline hive minds of Kresh who'd hidden their consciousness in asteroid belts when the purges came. Even a handful of the Council's own soldiers, their loyalty fractured by Earth's broadcast. They'd come with scars, with ships held together by desperation and spit, with stories that would haunt humanity's dreams for generations. Kira stared at the growing crowd of aliens in the ruined hangar, her fingers twitching like she wanted to record everything. "We thought we were alone," she whispered. Torvak's laugh was a sound like bones breaking. The network made sure of that. Then the work began, not with grand speeches or blueprints, but with something simpler, a single data core hauled from the wreckage of a Council relay. Torvak plunged a claw into its exposed circuitry, letting his own ship's systems merge with the scorched technology. "No encryption," he growled, "no backdoors. Just voices, one by one." The others added their pieces. A Kresh node spun from crystallized thought. A Jovian frequency modulator, still sticky with its creator's biogel. Human quantum servers, jury-rigged to handle alien architectures. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't even stable, but as the first test pulse flared into the void unfiltered, unmonitored, carrying nothing but a simple message in 100 tongues, "We are here," Voss realized what they'd truly done. The old network had been built to divide, to control. This one was built to scream. The comms array crackled to life, its damaged speakers distorting under the strain of something vast. Voss had expected silence or worse, a last spiteful strike from the Council's remnants. Not this, not a chorus. The signal hit like a tidal wave, 1,000 frequencies woven into a single thread of sound that shook the bunker's surviving monitors. Languages built for alien throats, mathematic harmonies sung by crystalline minds, even the pulse code of ships that spoke in gravitational waves, all harmonizing around one phrase, repeated in broken English like a vow, "We hear you." Raj staggered back from the console as the waveform visualization overloaded, its jagged peaks climbing off the screen. It's not just a reply, he breathed. They're layering new signals on top of ours, amplifying it. Kira's hands flew across the keyboard, isolating strands of the transmission. One came from Torvak's fleet, already rebroadcasting Earth's message deeper into the void. Another spooled out from the Kresh hives, their song fracturing into 100 sub-channels to bypass dead relays. But the third made Voss's breath catch. A tight beam from a system no human map had ever recorded. Its encryption so old the Council's archives labeled it only with a warning glyph, Firstborn. The message was simple, a single coordinate, 12,000 light-years coreward, paired with a timestamp in a dead civilization's timekeeping. Come, it seemed to say. While the chains are still broken, outside the sky burned with new arrivals, not warships this time, scouts, couriers, ragged exploration pods with hulls patched by generations of exile. They descended without hails, without demands, their docking protocols jury-rigged to mesh with Earth's crippled systems. A Jovian work pod touched down first, its pilot emerging with a cargo hold full of spliced quantum cores. For your matrices, they rasped through a translator box, so you speak louder. By dawn, the cobbled-together array in Geneva's ruins was singing again, its voice no longer solitary. Voss stood at the center of the storm, watching alien hands work alongside human engineers to rewire the wreckage of the old world into something wilder. The message hadn't changed, we are free, join us, but now it pulsed outward on frequencies no Council firewall had ever contained, carried by 100 species who remembered what it was to whisper. The Firstborn's coordinate glowed steady on the main display. No one knew what waited there. No one could promise it was safe, but as the next transmission cycle began, as 1,000 more voices added themselves to the chorus, Voss understood the terrifying, exhilarating truth. They weren't just rebuilding the network, they were building something with teeth.